All right, so we're diving deep into atomic habits today.
Yeah,
It seems like our listeners are ready to maybe like level up their daily routines.
absolutely.
And this book is kind of the playbook for that, right?
It really is. And you know what I think is so remarkable about James Clear's work with Atomic Habits is that, he really does use his own life as testament to this philosophy.
Oh, totally.
Like, he had this accident
Right.
and he wasn't supposed to recover.
Right.
Like they prepared him for a very different future.
Yeah. It's a crazy story.
And he used these tiny habits to not just recover, but to thrive.
Right. And I think that's what's so powerful about this book
Absolutely.
is that it really underscores that power of consistency even when you're facing, monumental challenges.
It's so true. And I think it really does show you that even small changes, consistently applied, can create these ripples of change that transform your entire life.
Oh,
And the best part is,
yeah.
he breaks it all down into a framework that really anyone can follow.
Right. Okay. So for those of us who maybe haven't cracked the spine on this one yet,
Yeah.
what's the deal with habits?
Okay.
Like, why are some so ingrained, others feel like an uphill battle?
So Clear breaks it down into 4 stages.
Mhm.
Cue, craving, response, and reward.
Okay.
So think of it like this. You see a plate of cookies on the counter, that's your cue.
Yeah.
And suddenly you're craving something sweet.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Right.
Yeah.
So then you reach for the cookie. That's your response to the craving.
Right.
And the reward.
Yeah.
That delicious, sugary satisfaction.
It's so...
That, my friend, is a habit loop in action.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the more we repeat that loop, the stronger the neural pathways become.
Totally.
It's like wearing a path in the forest of our minds.
That's a great way to put it.
Right.
Yeah. And each time that loop runs its course, a little dopamine is released in your brain,
Yeah.
solidifying that connection.
All right.
So that's the neuroscience behind why habits, both good and bad, can feel so automatic.
Totally.
Yeah.
So how do we use all this, this knowledge to build better habits,
Right.
Because it's one thing to know about the cookie and the dopamine,
Yeah.
but how do I, stop myself from going for the cookie jar?
Yeah. So that's where Clear's 4 laws of behavior change come in.
Okay.
And the first one is make it obvious,
Okay.
which is all about awareness. And he talks about creating a habit scorecard
Okay.
where you essentially list out all of your daily habits,
Hmm.
good and bad.
So you're, taking inventory?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you might be surprised by how many unconscious habits you actually have.
Oh, absolutely.
And then he gives this fascinating example of Japanese railway workers
Okay.
who use a technique called pointing and calling,
Interesting.
where they will literally point at signals and call out commands
Wow.
for even the most routine tasks
Interesting. Okay.
to increase their awareness.
Yeah, it sounds, I get it.
Yeah.
Bringing that mindfulness to every action, no matter how small.
Totally.
Okay, so once we're aware of our habits, good and bad,
Yeah.
how do we start building those better ones?
So that's where the second law comes in. Make it attractive. And one of arguably the most effective way to boost a habit's attractiveness
Okay.
is through what he calls habit stacking.
Oh, yeah.
Have you heard of this?
I have heard of this, yeah. It's
Yeah.
where you kind of
Yeah,
pair a new habit with an existing one.
exactly. So let's say you want to start a meditation practice.
Okay.
You're like, ugh, how do I do this?
Right.
So instead of trying to build that habit from scratch,
Yeah.
you might try stacking it onto an existing habit, like brushing your teeth.
Oh.
So you tell yourself, after I brush my teeth, I will meditate for 2 minutes.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because you're using that momentum of an existing habit
Yes.
to kind of
Totally.
springboard you into this new one.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it makes it so much easier.
So we're piggybacking on existing routines
Yes.
to build these new ones.
That's exactly.
But then what happens when, that initial excitement kind of wears off?
Right.
We all hit that wall,
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
We know consistency is key.
Yeah.
But how do you stay motivated when the going gets tough?
Right. So that's where his third law comes in.
Okay.
Make it easy.
Okay.
And he talks about removing as much friction as possible,
Right.
especially in those early stages.
Yeah.
And one technique that he advocates for is the 2-minute rule.
Oh, I like this one.
Have you heard of this?
Yeah, it's like breaking it down into
No.
those bite-sized pieces.
Yeah.
So it's not so overwhelming.
Exactly. So let's say you want to start exercising regularly, but the thought of a full workout just feels
Oh, forget it.
right.
Yeah.
So instead of aiming for an hour at the gym,
Right.
start by simply committing to putting on your workout clothes
It seems almost deceptively simple, but I
Yeah.
can see how that would lower that barrier to entry.
Totally. And oftentimes, once you're in your workout clothes,
Right, exactly.
you're more likely to be like, well, I might as well.
I might as well.
I'm dressed for this now.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
Why not?
Exactly.
It's like tricking your brain into taking action,
Totally.
which I love that.
Yes.
Okay, so we've made it obvious, we made it attractive, we've made it easy.
Right.
What's that final piece?
The fourth law. Make it satisfying.
Okay.
Because ultimately, we are wired to seek out pleasure
Right.
and avoid pain.
Totally.
So if we want a habit to stick,
Yeah.
we need to make it rewarding.
Totally.
So Clear talks about using visual trackers,
Okay.
rewarding yourself,
Right.
or even just taking a moment to acknowledge and savor
Yeah.
your accomplishments.
I love that. It's like,
Yeah.
especially something like a habit tracker,
Yes.
you get that visual, like I'm leveling up in a game or something.
Certainly.
It's that positive reinforcement.
It is, yeah.
But he doesn't just stop at like the external rewards.
Yeah.
He goes into like the identity piece.
Yes.
And how that influences our habit.
Absolutely. He argues that, true behavior change is about more than just checking off tasks. It's
Yeah.
about shifting your identity.
Totally.
So, for instance, instead of focusing on losing weight, focus on becoming a healthy person.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Your habits should align with the person you aspire to be.
It's like you embody that identity
Exactly.
through the action. It's so cool.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of that story he told about the Polgar sisters with, the chess prodigies and how their father like immersed them in that world.
Oh, dear.
And it really does speak to how our environment shapes those habits.
Absolutely.
So powerful.
And that brings us to another crucial aspect of this,
Okay.
which is the power of our surroundings.
Okay.
So, Clear talks about redesigning your environment
Right.
to support your desired habits.
Okay.
So, for example, if you're trying to eat healthier,
Right.
make sure that nutritious snacks are visible and easily accessible.
Yeah. Put them at the front of the fridge.
Yeah.
A sight out of mind. Right.
Exactly.
For those unhealthy temptations.
Exactly.
I love that. So we're really setting ourselves up for success
Totally.
by making those good habits the path of least resistance.
Yes. Make it easy on yourself.
I love it. This has been such a great deep dive.
It has.
We've covered so much. The
Yeah.
4 stages of habit formation,
Yes.
those 4 laws for creating change.
Powerful stuff.
It's a really practical framework for understanding.
Yeah.
And, like we said at the beginning, optimizing our habits.
Absolutely. And it really is incredible when you think about the impact
Right.
that our habits have on every single area of our lives.
Yeah, and that's what I keep coming back to is that idea of like, if these small changes consistently applied can lead to these remarkable results, what does that mean if we're just on autopilot?
That's such a good question. And I think that's something for all of us to reflect on,
Totally.
because our habits are shaping our future,
Totally.
whether we're aware of them or not.
100%. So
Yeah.
the question is,
Yes.
what are you creating?
What kind of future are you crafting one small habit at a time?
Love it. Such good stuff. Thank you so much for this deep dive.
Thank you for having me.
This was great.
It was my pleasure.